Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike. Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Minutes with Mike. I am your host, Mike Ryan, and today we are in luck. Our guest today is CEO and founder of SoPost, Mr. Johnny Grubin. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you so much for having me.
And alongside me is my longtime colleague and best buddy, David Silbergleit, the CEO of PIMS. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a long time coming, and I'm grateful to have the two of you as we dive into the world of Johnny Grubin and SoPost and how it all started and where it's going. So let's dive right in. Johnny, shall we?
Great,
Throw my glasses on. Here we go. So I want to start at the beginning, right? Where did it all begin? Where did it start? Like, when did you start to get acclimated to this world of you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to start your own business? I'm sure it didn't start out that way. Tell me how it started.
Oof, that's a big topic.
There you go.
I mean, I don't know if I ever really made a conscious decision to be an entrepreneur. It might sound cliched, but I feel like it's always been in my blood, and it's always been like a real part of my personality. I remember when I was growing up and I was still in primary school, as we call it in the UK. So level up from kindergarten. I don't know how the terminology switches. But I was coming up with all these kind of stupid, like, entrepreneurial ideas. Never really executed any of them, but I also remember in my bedroom I set up a little supermarket, so, trading things on. So there was always sort of entrepreneurial ideas and sparks there, and it wasn't for any motivation other than, like, it just felt really fun to play at being a business person. And then when I was, 8 or 9, we got dial-up internet, and it was free.
Remember those days?
Remember,
yeah.
I'm sure David does pretty well.
The rest was history.
But we got dial-up, and it was free after 6 p.m. But of course, because it tied up the actual phone line, each of us, I have 3 siblings, each of us were allowed online for 15 minutes a day. So I spent my 15 minutes playing games on like the BBC's kids website and stuff, and over time, like, got really fascinated about this idea of websites and just building stuff. And I don't know if either of you will recall GeoCities.
I do.
RIP. But it...
A little over my head.
It was the early days of the internet, like. So GeoCities, I discovered this platform where you could actually build your own website, and I just kind of got engrossed with this. And I mean, I was building horrible websites, but I taught myself how to code basic HTML, some CSS, some graphic design, and again, I just loved the idea that I could make something and someone on the other side of the world would see it. And I doubt anyone on the other side of the world ever did. But it was...
But they could have.
They could have, and that's what matters. And sort of as the years went on, I really, I was, I guess, quite nerdy growing up from a sort of tech perspective, and like I said, taught myself to code, started building websites, and when I was 12 I got my first mobile phone, and I didn't want to spend my pocket money paying for wallpapers and screensavers for the phone, so taught myself some graphic design. And then friends in school were asking for the content that I had, and so again, built a website, put the content online, and I just made it available to everyone for free. Again, it was something that I just enjoyed doing. But the website began to get quite a bit of traffic. Over time, I developed it into sort of providing tutorials on how to use Photoshop as well. And the traffic kept building and building.
How old are you at this time?
I think now I was probably, no, not now, then I was 11 or 12.
Wow, okay.
And the website began to get a lot of traffic. Like I said, I was just doing it because it was fun. I didn't even know that it was possible to make money on the internet. But someone I was chatting to, basically convinced me that I should put some advertising on the website. Of course, you needed to be 18 to sign up with any of these affiliate platforms. I'm not sure whether my dad ended up agreeing to let me use his details or whether I asked for forgiveness later. But anyway, I
Sorry, Dad.
ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
But anyway, after about a few months of trying to convince him that this is all legit, it's not a scam, I ended up putting some ads on the site, and I remember so clearly about 6 months later, I got a check through the door for £12 and a penny. It's probably about $16 to you, David.
I'll take it.
But I remember it so vividly. I mean, it was £12. It was nothing, but it had come from something that I really just loved doing, and it sort of triggered this spark in my mind of, hold on a second, I'm making money doing something that I really love when all my friends are out delivering papers or washing dishes. Wouldn't it be cool if I could make more than £10 every 6 months? And I'd say from there, that's really kind of where it began. And I think at that point, honestly, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I realized I loved doing whatever it was. And I was quite excited about the opportunity to build and try to turn something into a business from there. So I'd say that's probably where it started. I think there's always been that entrepreneurial bug within me, but certainly that early access to the internet and having the freedom just to play with building websites was an amazing starting point for me.
I mean, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure along the way your parents or your siblings or your mates, as you guys call it, your friends, there's probably some naysayers out there who are like, you're wasting your time, don't focus on that. You could be delivering papers and washing dishes and making money and leading to something potentially down the road versus this garbage you're putting together here. How did you sort of, in your own brain, work that out, that you knew that you may be onto something? Like, what sparked in your brain that said, I'm going to see this through?
Yeah, well, I'd actually say for the most part, my parents were actually incredibly supportive, and it was kind of weird for me because I was a teenager, obviously growing up at home, and it felt weird to be making money on the internet. It was like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be focusing on school, and what is this other world? So I was kind of doing a lot of it in secret, and I'm sure my parents saw that there was something going on. But then this guy, Alex Q, launched a website called the $1 Million Homepage. And I actually met Alex several years later, and I was like, dude, thank you so much. You allowed me to really jump in and go for it, because he was a university student at the time, had built this website where it had 1 million pixels, and each pixel you could buy for $1. But his PR was amazing. He was on the front cover of pretty much every magazine, every newspaper in the UK. And my dad sat me and my brother down one day, showed us this article and was like, what's your $1 million idea? And I was like, oh, well, I've actually been working on something. He was like, great. Didn't give me sort of any money to get started. I was kind of reinvesting what I'd been able to generate through the advertising. But I felt like that it gave me the freedom and the opportunity to go out and launch something. I think I've probably been fairly lucky in the sense that because I started so young, and at that age when you're living at home, you don't have any bills, you don't have any dependents, so you really can just treat it as a bit of a game, and if stuff doesn't work out, it's fine and you can go back to it. And I think the benefit for me of starting so young was that I wasn't starting for the first time in my mid-20s or later, when it is much more of a risk, and perhaps having not had those prior experiences, when someone says to you, oh, that's a stupid idea, or oh, that's never going to work, I might have taken it to heart much more. So I think I've been really lucky in that respect. One of the funny things though was, and maybe I'm fast forwarding in the story a little bit, but I moved to London for university. About 3 months later, dropped out to take a startup full time. And again, I was building it all in secret. And I was in university dorms, or halls, as we say in the UK. We could do a little English American dictionary here.
That'll be the second.
We'll correct you if you don't say it.
Okay,
right.
great, thank you. You might need to subtitle some of this as well. But again, I was doing it all in secret. I hadn't told any of my flatmates or roommates that I had a business on the side, and they saw me as, I hope, this really fun, really cool guy who was out with them partying every night and just not going to his lectures. But of course, I'd get back from our club nights at 2 a.m. and I'd be working until 5 or 6 on the business.
Wow.
But when I dropped out, some of them tried to have an intervention with me because they were like, Johnny, what are you doing? Like, you're going to screw up your life. And I was like, guys, actually, like, I'm doing this.
This is what I've been
doing. Maybe I don't have a plan, but you know, I've got some ideas and there's some stuff that I'm gonna push through. And again, once I told them that I was doing all of this, like the support and the backing was, you know, really just quite amazing.
But that $1 million idea that you had was not sampling.
It was not something.
Far from it.
Far from it.
How do you get to SoPost?
Yeah, I want to know what that aha moment was.
So I dropped out of university to take another business full time. And it was actually started by a group of 8 of us who met on Twitter, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I was 17 at the time. And we all sort of rallied around this, what I thought was an incredible, potentially world-changing idea around allowing people to send physical items to their friends or their relatives without actually needing to know their shipping address. And it had started from a problem Ben Way, the guy who had the idea, had, which was he's dyslexic. Both him and his sister are traveling a lot, and he's like, why is it so hard for me to send her a birthday gift? And why can't I just send it to her through her Twitter account? So a bunch of us started, you know, developing this project. I'll keep the story maybe slightly abbreviated, but you know, the gist of it was that we went to market with a pretty cool proposition. We partnered with some nationwide delivery companies in the UK, which meant that you as a customer could buy a shipping label from us, but there was no address printed on it. Like, all the sort of mapping happened behind the scenes with us and our partnership with that delivery company. So I dropped out of uni to take that full time. I thought, you know, I've always said when the time is right, I'm just going to commit and see what happens. And I felt like, okay, I only started 3 months ago, but if this isn't that moment, I don't know when it's going to come. So I dropped out of university. Big learning for me, it's quite difficult to live in London with no income.
Kind of important.
Kind of important. Somehow managed to figure it out. I got quite good at finding art gallery openings that had free snacks. There was a lot of tech events at the time. But it was literally like I would go to these events to get fed. I'd book meetings around lunchtime in the hope that someone would pay for a meal for me.
That's awesome.
But I met incredible people
Which
doing
you
that
still do.
as well.
Yeah.
Well, you're very generous.
This is
Cheers.
Cheers for that. And so I was, you know, focused on building this thing, and it was very difficult, not just because of the fact that we built the business on Twitter, but also like the way we built the product, and probably the timing was quite off as well. So to cut a very long story short, after about 18 months, we threw in the towel. I went and got a job in a frozen yogurt shop, which had paid me more money in 2 weeks than I'd made in that entire time since dropping out of university. And it was also just stress-free. Like, I was serving frozen yogurt.
Right, yeah.
I mean, having now made frozen yogurt, I wouldn't recommend buying it. And certainly there were maybe some questions around the hygiene of how it's made. But
Wonderful.
yeah, went there, and then very quickly, one of the guys who was involved in that venture, I found out that I was making froyo, and he was like, Johnny, come work with me. Because he had recently set up sort of a mix between a technology incubator / accelerator. And the proposition was really about building a full commercial infrastructure around really smart tech people. So I started working there on the product front, but very commercially focused. But he knew that I always wanted to do my own thing. So we made this deal that as and when there was something that I wanted to, you know, throw myself into, as long as I was covering my cost in the business, I could spend a day a week doing that, and then 2 days a week, and then hopefully eventually, you know, be full time on my own thing, but with the support of an income, so I could pay my rent and
That's
my
nice.
bills, which was great. Like it was an amazing setup, and you know, the 12 months or so that I was building and selling product there was so great in terms of, you know, fair enough, I didn't get a university degree, but that university of life experience. I wasn't earning a lot, but frankly, I look back and I think, wow, that was worth so much to me. So I was there, and it's gonna, again, sound super cliched, but this original idea of the postal thing, I couldn't get it out of my head. I'd be in bars with friends and I'd be thinking about it. I think I had a few dreams about it. And I was just so convinced that the idea hadn't failed because it was a bad idea, but it had failed because you probably shouldn't start a business with people you don't know. but our execution was awful. Like, we actually mapped out the user journey one. So whilst we were trying to make all of this stuff so much easier, it was actually a 26-step process to send or receive anything through the platform. So we weren't making anything easier. And like, our positioning was wrong. To be fair to us, the timing maybe wasn't right either. Maybe we were slightly too early to market. But I was convinced, whatever the challenges were, the core idea of what we were trying to do was so cool and so beautiful that, like, I just wanted to give it another shot. And so enter SoPost. So I started kind of building that out mid-2012. And the idea behind SoPost was about taking that earlier thing a little bit further. And for me, it was trying to solve two problems. One is that I live in central London. I'm rarely at home. My mailbox is like this big. And at least twice a month I get back and I've missed a delivery. Which is super annoying for me. It's also extremely expensive for delivery companies. I'm sure you guys, have to deal with those challenges all the time. And I bet you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, if only Johnny had made that idea work, my life would be so much easier. But that was the first issue I had. And then the second one is, I don't know anyone's address. Like, even my parents, they moved house a few years back. I know how to get there. Couldn't tell you their zip code. So again, I want to send my mom something, got to send her that text to get her postcode. And then she's probably not home when it arrives either. And so the idea was about saying, well, firstly, your address shouldn't be where you live. It should be where you are or where you want stuff to be sent to. And it shouldn't matter if I don't know your postcode, because I know your phone number, I know your email address. Why can't that act as a proxy for where you want stuff to be sent to? And the vision was that SoPost would be this dynamic addressing layer that would live between an online checkout and a delivery vehicle. Or I'd be able to scribble your email address on an envelope, throw it in the post box, and as it's going through USPS's system, they ping us and say, okay, David's in the office in Midtown today, so that's where we're going to send this item. So that was where it started. Clearly,
that's a great concept.
Yeah.
It's an amazing concept.
The execution's a little difficult, because you need the USPS to be on board with it.
Well, exactly. And that was the biggest challenge I discovered, because I launched, my friend John was very kindly helping me out with the coding, and we launched what in tech terms is known as an MVP, not most valuable player, a minimum viable product. So you could sign up to sopost.com, you could connect with your Facebook, Twitter or email accounts, you could add in some physical locations, and then you could create a schedule. So Monday I'm here, Thursday I'm here, blah blah blah. You do that, you couldn't actually do anything off the back of it. But we launched the MVP really kind of to give me some closure around did I quit uni for the right reasons or not? And gratefully, we got some amazing PR coverage, and very quickly the idea was validated. Consumers loved it, retailers loved it, delivery companies loved it so much that one of the very big ones flew me out to meet them for a week, because they were really interested in exploring it with me and seeing if there was an opportunity to invest and then partner to bring it to market.
You probably got a couple good meals from that one too.
At least on the plane.
It was a fun trip.
There you
go. But I mean, you're kind of right. Like, very quickly, I realized that the issue wasn't so much on the technical side. Like, yes, you would need to integrate with these carriers. It's probably not the hardest thing in the world. But until you have a huge database of 10, 20 million people who have joined all of these data points together, why on earth would USPS or Royal Mail go to that effort to plug me in?
It's not worth it.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So I was sat there on this idea that I knew was amazing, I knew the world wanted, but just couldn't for the life of me figure out how I could be the person to bring it to the scale that I wanted it to exist at.
Yep.
So in many ways, a great problem to have. In many other ways, not a great problem to have, because I could not figure out the solution to it. And that's kind of where the pivot happened, because about 2 weeks before we launched SoPost version 1, I met someone who was looking after digital marketing for a singer called Noel Gallagher. That was interesting because you mentioned that name in the UK and suddenly everyone's eyes light up. Maybe he's a little bit more well-known now with the re-emergence of Oasis, but...
We were, in fact, just talking about him on the way over.
And I heard you were going to take me to go see him.
If they ever get back together and don't break up again on stage.
I look forward to the tickets. But 5 or so years ago, I'd say that name here, and I would just be met with...
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, David's probably more well-known,
I think so.
But anyway, quite a well-known musician in the UK. he had been touring with his other band, and Nick, who was running digital marketing, we got chatting, and he was saying, what you're doing sounds really cool. We've got this DVD that we're trying to sell. If you can come up with a clever way for us to market it, sell some more DVDs, build something, we'll promote it. And at the time, it was being promoted out to like 2 million people across his Facebook and email lists. And in hindsight, I think Nick probably saw this 20-year-old who was super naive and like really didn't have any idea what he was doing. But
a DVD, for those that don't know, is a disc you used to put into and play videos or music or movies on. Go ahead, Johnny, sorry.
Thank you for the clarification.
A smaller version of the laser
Yes.
So my friend John, the guy who was really kindly helping me out with the coding, hacked together this website where you could buy the DVD for a friend of yours. But the gimmick was that rather than just entering your friend's shipping address, you tagged them on Facebook. And then a post would appear on Facebook, a post would appear on David's Facebook timeline. It would be from me, but then SoPost embedded some content within it. And if David wanted the DVD, he could really easily click through. He could tell us where to send it. We build your credit card, and everyone was happy.
So it was a way to invite somebody to purchase.
No,
online.
sorry. So I would purchase it for you as a gift, but I wasn't entering your shipping info.
You purchased it. Hey, you have a free gift
Exactly.
waiting for you. Enter your information where you'd like it sent.
Exactly.
And it'll be there. Okay.
Exactly. So we sold 50 DVDs. I was told that was
Out of the
really
2 million.
successful. 2 million people ordered it.
Okay. Okay.
Again, I think they were just being nice. They told me it was super successful. Actually, because we were collecting the payment as well, and it was like £20 a DVD. It was more hassle for them to set me up as a supplier on the system. So they never actually invoiced. They would like just keep it, which is great. A little bit of seed money to move forward. But I only did that to get some publicity behind the original idea, and I thought, is this a clever way to start building that database without needing to figure out like a massive global marketing strategy to recruit people. Did that, went back to trying to figure out the real idea, and fast forward a month or two, and this email landed in my inbox from somebody pretty high up at a company I'm sure you're familiar with them, Avon Cosmetics.
Have heard of them.
I thought you might.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably worth me saying I knew nothing about the beauty world at the time. Product sampling wasn't really a term that was in my vocabulary. But I got this email from Julie, and she said, I've seen what you did with Noel Gallagher. I'd like to meet with you.
Was she one of the people that purchased?
I don't think so.
She just...
I guess somebody had sent it to her.
She's one of the 50. It was pure luck. It was perfect.
Massive fan of Noel. And so she had been put in charge of a skincare brand, Liz Earle, which Avon they don't own anymore, but they had recently acquired it at the time. And their head office is super cool. It's called the Greenhouse, and it's on the Isle of Wight, which is an island off the south coast of England.
Okay.
Really cool, nightmare to get to. So, obviously I was budget conscious as well because I'd raised like a tiny sliver of investment. But got myself on a train, then I got myself on a boat, then they had a car waiting for me when I arrived on the island, drove me to the Greenhouse, and I was met by this woman who, clearly was so successful in her career, like a real, really smart brain there, and I was just struck by how much she wanted me to adapt the proposition for her. And she basically said to me, if you can adapt what you did for Noel Gallagher for us, I'll be your first customer, I'll spend money with you, and you can work with my team to build the thing that we're really looking for. And very honestly, I had no idea what she was so excited about. But I thought to myself, she has some insight that I don't. It's probably worth just rolling with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the 6 months or so that followed, recruited an early team, we built out this product, and it was honestly only 2 weeks before we launched with them that the penny really dropped, and I was like, sorry to swear, but fuck, that's huge. You can believe that.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Because what she told me in that first meeting was that there were two things that were so important to their business. One was product trial, and the second was word of mouth recommendations, advocacy. And they at the time had a really engaged, really loyal customer base, but she told me that whilst people who bought the product loved it and typically spent several hundreds of pounds over the next few years, they were really bad at recruiting new customers. But they were super engaged, super loyal. And what she'd seen in the work we'd done with Noel was a really nice way to tie together the trial and the recommendation. And so when we launched sort of the first version of sampling through SoPost, it was all about allowing somebody to gift a sample to a friend. So the very first campaign we ran with them was about going out to the existing customer and saying, hey, thank you for being such an amazing customer. We know you love our products. Would you like to share the secret of great looking skin with a friend of yours? And then the existing customer could really easily gift a sample to their friend or their relative through Facebook or via email. And that was kind of where it all came from. I honestly can take very little credit for the original idea. I can take credit for rolling with it.
And the name.
And the name. So the name SoPost, ties back to the that original concept.
So let me ask
Was
you,
it called SoPost for a while?
So it was always SoPost, but the so's the social.
let me ask you a quick question. So sampling obviously is much more than just your recommending for somebody to get a product. Is any of the sampling still that where people are going in and they're existing customers to offer it to a friend? Is any of the business still that, or is it all through retail and the brand websites?
So I'm just laughing because you looked straight into the camera for emphasis.
I was told to emphasize with the camera. Thank you guys.
That was
this
nice.
is terrible.
Welcome to Minutes with Mike.
I'm out of here.
It's a really good question. It was all we did for the first few years. And actually, because for me, that was the most valuable part of the proposition. It was this gifting thing is so powerful because it's basically a double opt-in, right? I have to be confident that you're going to like the product, and then you actually have to physically opt into it. So it wasn't like you're just handing something out in the street.
It's effective.
It's effective and so qualified, so validated. It was all we did for the first few years, and we had brands coming to us and saying, we love that, but there's so much more that we want to do with you. So over time, the platform developed, and today we very much act as the infrastructure for online product sampling. But the really, really, really cool thing for me is that gifting is now back with a vengeance. We started experimenting with it again a couple of years back, and now it's plugged into a lot of what we do, whether it's through the target consumer being able to gift a sample to a friend of theirs once they've received their sample, or actually really engaging a loyal customer. So to give you an example, a couple of weeks ago, March 14th, it was World Sleep Day. And one of our brand partners have incredible serums and creams and stuff that you apply before you go to bed. And they launched this really cool activation where they went out to existing customers and they chose relevant cohorts based on what their goals were around loyalty and conversion, etc. Went out to existing customers and said, would you like to gift a good night's sleep to a friend of yours? And you could send a gift. And that was that. So it's so lovely for me to see how it's almost gone full circle.
That's great.
And how it performs, because that early data from Lizelle, they told us that 8% of the people who had received a trial product actually came and purchased through their website in the 6 weeks post trial, and that's obviously not catching any sales through bricks and mortar or digital channels that they didn't own. And it was like, oh my gosh, this actually works. And not only are they driving sales through a channel that wasn't really available to them before in terms of digital sampling, but they were collecting so much valuable first-party data. They were getting a ton of user-generated content and reviews, and the insight and the analytics, it was huge. No longer was it just about giving away a product and hoping that someone's going to try it and hoping that they're going to come back and buy. Now it's okay, we do the trial, but it's super targeted, but we're collecting really valuable data, and we can support so many other pillars of our KPIs and corporate goals in a really, really, really strategic way. So it was pretty cool.
That's great.
That's awesome. We recently were part of the very successful SoPost Summit here in New York. Congratulations on that. It brought together a lot of good brands, a lot of good conversations, and one of the things that the audience had asked was, what's next, right? What innovations coming through SoPost that sort of that differentiates you from the rest? Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Innovation is something I love, and one of the things that really drives me is doing things that nobody's done before. And again, when we started sampling online, we were first to market. Like, it wasn't, Julie, I think, was the only person in the world who saw where it was going to go. And it has been so fun to not only, build new product, but take it to market and kind of build the market around it. And one of the things that really drives me and motivates me is making sure that we're always pushing the envelope forward, and we're always, working on what I hope will be mainstream in 2 years' time that most people haven't even started thinking about yet.
I actually saw on your website on the About Us section, I was the person that went to that page.
Did you refresh 10 times?
I refreshed 10 times.
Thank you.
But I saw you, and this is a great way of thinking about things.
Mm-hmm.
But you actually have the paragraph that talks about you always think of yourselves as the underdog.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important for any business, because if you go in there thinking, we're at the top of the game here, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But if you're always thinking, even if you are number one, which you guys are number one in sampling, you still have so much further that you can develop the program if you are thinking that somebody else is right on
for
you.
sure. And my mindset has always been, I feel very grateful and so proud of the work that the team has done over the last 13 years to get us to this position. But none of our past success guarantees success tomorrow. And that underdog mentality and that attitude is so, so, so important. And obviously innovation is a key part of that. We're doing some really cool work at the moment, particularly on our partner ecosystem. When we started, it was very much about sampling through social media platforms, and then we branched out to publishers and started building some really cool data sets and new audiences. It'll be announced soon, but there are some really exciting retailer partnerships coming out.
Great.
We have some live in Germany already, which are so powerful because what it allows a brand to do is sample to a target consumer based on a retailer shopper data. So, right now you might use your own data set to target lookalikes on Meta. Great. Very cool. But imagine if you have a key retail partner you're looking to support, and imagine if you can say to them, okay, I want to sample my mascara to somebody who is currently buying from a competitor. It's a similar price point and they haven't purchased in the last 4 months. So it's like taking that targeting like a leap further, not just a step further.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're really building that relationship that the brand has with the retailer. So I'm particularly excited about what we're doing in that space. And then beyond that, there's a ton of really, really cool stuff happening on the reporting front. Not just in terms of data we're collecting, but again, I've always been a huge proponent of actionable insights. Data for the sake of data has never
It's
really
just numbers.
It's never excited me. So how can we help our partners use data to make informed decisions and to help them really understand what's going on? And of course, AI plays a really important part in that as well. So yeah, I mean, there's loads happening. The retailer stuff I'm particularly excited about. We have plans on the reporting front, and it's to me, it's mind blowing.
I love that. And sorry, Mike, I'm taking all the questions.
Go ahead.
So I apologize. We're talking about innovation.
Yeah.
You love innovation. You think of yourselves as the underdog. I think it was a couple of years ago. I was hanging out with you and your entire team at that rooftop hangout. You had brought your
Citizen M Hotel in the Lower East Side.
Everybody get that? This is an M Hotel paid promotion. You had brought your team to New York because you had done this awesome program where you basically set up a contest of who could come up with the best program for a certain retailer. I won't name names. And the winning team got to come to New York for the week on SoPost, enjoy New York City, and then get to present their concept to that retailer.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to somebody on your team when you were not in the room, or
Not
in the area, and I only bring up the fact that you were not in the area because they felt comfortable to actually talk to me, not knowing who I was, and they said that you were the CEO, the Chief Enablement Officer.
Oh, I like that.
And it stuck with me because I would love to have that title. I still think I'm executive, not enablement, but I would love to have that title because what it means is that your people really believe in what you're preaching, and they believe that you're going to give them the opportunity to grow as well. It just always stuck with me because that goes hand in hand with the innovation, the underdog, the always thinking, how do we build the business? And the people that work for you feel the same way.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the most important thing, right? You can't, it doesn't matter how you think, unless you have an amazing team around you, and unless you're enabling them to, A, be amazing at their job, but also to grow in the direction they want. Like, A, you're not going to get there, but B, for me as well, the point is like, why am I even doing any of this?
Yeah.
You know, the thing that I love the most is being able to grow people's careers, and I feel so privileged to have witnessed some incredible journeys, and frankly I'm sure these people would have gone out and achieved these things anyway, but it's so nice to know that I've been able to play a really small part in unlocking some of that potential.
Yeah, that's nice.
It raises a good question too, and this is really for both of you, but specifically Johnny, right? Like, so now that your company is growing much bigger, you know, the question is, and this is a little bit towards you too, Dave, is, you know, company culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you do things like SoPost Week, where you could talk a little bit about that, but like keeping things going, making sure that the Johnny Grubins and the Dave Silberglights that work for you, that have they're looking for opportunities to raise their own performance and opportunities, right? How do you encourage that sort of look and feel within the company, getting the day-to-day work done, but also enticing people to stretch their legs and give their opinions and stuff like that?
I mean, I don't know if I have a simple answer to that. It's certainly harder as you get bigger. You know, in the early days, there was 5 of us. It was all, you know, kind of worked like friends as well, and we all knew that if we don't deliver today, we might die tomorrow, which really brings a certain kind of thing out of
culture.
You.
Yeah.
But you know, we were really fighting to survive and to build something that we were all so invested in. And obviously, as you grow, it's impossible to maintain that. But I think the culture that you build and that exists within the organisation is really key to unlocking a lot of that. And to be very honest with you, prior to the pandemic, we'd never really done too much to like make a culture. It was all just organic, and you know, mostly as a result of the people I'd hired, right? Like that is the culture ultimately. But when COVID hit and overnight everyone was remote, and we'd always been kind of flexible and stuff anyway, but suddenly no one was there in person, we really had to start thinking much more intentionally about, okay, how do we support the team, but also what does that culture look like? And you know, initiatives like SoPost Week were really important to that. I mean, little things like every Thursday we have an all hands meeting, and there's presentations and there's shout outs. You know, we have the SoPost Stars, where every month, and anyone in the company can nominate someone. But these are awards specifically for individuals who've really lived up and demonstrated the full company values that we have. So, you know, I think stuff like that and really creating this environment where people want to shout and recognize the amazing work that they and their colleagues are doing is so important.
Yeah.
But creating an environment where it's okay to mess up as well. Like, I'm the first person to say when something's gone wrong, guys, that's on me. You know, nobody gets shouted at when something hasn't worked. What annoys me is when we're not trying. And I think, you know, having that environment and that culture, and of course it's all well and good me saying that that's okay, but then instilling it right the way through the organisation. And I'm very lucky to have an incredible leadership team around me that sort of lives and breathes that every day. And they're particularly great at covering the areas I'm terrible at, you know, things like people management and frameworks. So we have, you know, all of these amazing career development frameworks in place now, and so it's very clear for somebody who wants to develop in their role what that looks like and what they need to do. And then of course we have people who have like really specific objectives, and if we can support them with that, like great, let's do it. Let's see how far we can take you, and let's see what we can do.
I think that becomes infectious too. I'm going to give you a chance to jump in here too. It becomes infectious, right? Like what they used to call the open door policy, when you can walk into the boss and share ideas or object or question or raise your hand. I think it gives people a sense of, you know, I'm part of something. I'm an integral part of building this, right? I may just be a smaller cog in this wheel, but without me, it wouldn't be as good. And I think every successful company, certainly I'll talk for PIMS and Dave's leadership, in doing that, it gives everybody that feeling like what they're doing is of the utmost
Well,
importance.
exactly. I'll give you another example. Sorry to cut you off, David.
No, your examples are good.
The sampling summit that you mentioned earlier. that was all spearheaded by one of our marketing team. She's not been with the business for that long, but she was like, I've got this idea for this event. I want to do it in New York. And we said, okay, do it. And, you know, pretty much single-handedly, she organised the whole thing from London. You know, she was out in town for the event, but planned it from London, like amazing speakers, amazing attendees. And I love that, you know, someone who's relatively new in the role feels like they have the ability to go out and do stuff. And, you know, the event was a huge success. But if it wasn't, I'm like, that's okay. Like, I want people who have high agency. I want people who, you know, want to build the business with me.
Don't want to just go with the flow.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I'm not going to sit there and say, hey, I think it would be a great idea to do a summit. Like, I have amazing people here, and I want their potential to be realised and unlocked. And, you know, I think it's great for their own development, but also, you know, if I run it very selfishly from the business perspective, I can't think of a better scenario than where people are always looking for those opportunities and those ways to help grow what we're creating.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's, you know, it's one of those things where trust is real. The culture is based on the trust, and if you can surround yourself by with people that you trust, then you know that things are going to get done. And if everybody is even going down to the interview process, if you're talking about what the company core values are, and everybody's in line with those, it creates such a good environment where people want to be there and want to be part. Company culture is more than just, are we going out to grab a Guinness? That way we can bring it back to England. Ireland.
Close.
Sorry. Or a London Pride, that's the English beer.
Or Newcastle
Brown Ale, whatever it might be. From Newcastle on Tyne,
before,
right? That's from Newcastle on Tyne.
Upon Tyne, yes.
I give up. Anyway,
So
and you
much
have
for
fish
name
and
dropping.
chips and things like that. No, but it really is. It's more than just going out for a pint with your mates. It's creating an environment.
He's trying so hard.
where people can feel like they're participating, feel like they're pushing the company forward, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's the company culture. You know, I feel the pain that you also felt when COVID hit and people were working remotely. As soon as I was able to have people come back to the office as much as possible to collaborate with each other, to feed off each other's momentum, like that, I love that.
Yeah.
Not everybody else does, but I love that. But that's the culture.
Good
That's
point.
the company.
Good point.
And I guess just last thing that I'll go back to, because you referenced, you know, one of our company values, act like the underdog. We changed our values a few years back because I was actually listening to this podcast that Mark Zuckerberg did, and he was talking about the values they have at Meta, and he was saying, you know, most companies, they have values like, we value trust, we value ownership, and they were actually two of our old values. And his point was, values are supposed to act as a filter. Like, if you have a value that 100% of the people you meet in the street agree with, and, you know, who in principle doesn't agree with trust and ownership, like, what's the point of having it as a value? And so when we, you know, sort of reworked all of that, we intentionally set our values as, you know, firstly things that either we're doing or we're really aspiring to be better at.
Yep.
But it was intentionally stuff that you can disagree with. You know, not everyone wants to act like the underdog. Not everyone. See if I can remember all four of them now. You know, not everyone wants to sort of commit to developing themselves, but working in that team environment. And it's been so helpful. I still interview every single person who joins the company, and it's been so helpful as a guide for me, but also a guide for other hiring managers around not just are you competent in the role, but do you possess those attributes that we want? And if you get it, you know, you can say you have good culture, you can say you have bad culture, but just like you said, it's not about going out for a pint or having an afternoon tea. It's about the individuals, and I think you have the right people, and it becomes so much easier to create an amazing environment.
Yeah.
You mentioned some influential people along the way, your parents and these other folks that you got started with. What would you say the best advice you ever got was, or the worst advice you ever got? Whichever is
The worst advice would probably have come from David at some point.
That was a no-brainer.
It's only because I love you so much.
I
feel
think
like
the
I
name
can
is
say
terrible.
that. Have a plan, I think you told me once.
Have a plan.
Have a plan.
That's all you need.
Best advice. I remember it really clearly, actually. I didn't really know what it meant at the time. But a guy called Dylan Collins, who was sort of very informally mentoring me in the early days, he told me to take the path of least resistance. Because at the time I was sort of doing a bit of the sampling stuff, but still sort of focused on this logistics distribution idea. And honestly, if I think about the period prior to SoPost, I spent 3 or 4 years trying to make this thing happen without really getting anywhere. And what I came to take from that expression, take the path of least resistance, was that you might have a destination in mind, but there are so many different roads you can take to get there. And for so long, I was just, trying to take the same road and hitting a roadblock. And it was like, oh, actually, maybe there's some really creative way that I can get there. And as it turns out, in the SoPost journey, the destination changed.
Yeah.
But actually, when I started pursuing the sampling stuff, it wasn't just because of how exciting that was. It almost felt like a bit of a Trojan horse to allow me to build that audience so that we could do the personal thing. And that's always stuck with me, and it's one of the things that my team's probably sick of hearing me say, but take the path of least resistance. It allows you to think more creatively, you can test stuff, and I think you get there faster. And if the destination changes,
It changes.
it's kind of okay as well.
That's great.
Interesting.
Johnny, as we close down, we have something that we didn't warn you or prep you about.
Oh, dear.
We call it the lightning round.
Uh-oh.
And David's going to ask you a series of this or that type questions.
I hope these have been vetted.
They have. We don't want you to think. We want you to just say whatever comes to your mind, and if we get a laugh out of it, that's fine too. But you could pass on at least one if you wanted to. But we are dying to see what's embedded in that brain. David Silverglide, it's all you.
No passing.
No passing.
No passing. But they're easy. They're simple. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Pizza or dumplings?
Pizza.
Even
Attaboy.
Din Tai Fung dumplings?
Next time you come to London, I have some spots in Chinatown.
Okay.
I'll blow your head off.
Okay.
They're
Dave's
so
obsessed
We'll
with
go back.
Din Tai Fung.
good. How many has he been to? 15?
He's got.
It's-
he also
it's-
steals the
it's-
pens
it's-
from. Did I say that?
14 of them I've been to. Anyway, ocean waves or ski slopes?
Ooh, so I went skiing for the first time in
I know.
January.
We saw the video.
But I do love. I used to hate beaches, but now sitting on a beach for 2 days with a book. Oh,
That's nice.
great. So I'll take both.
Okay,
if I
so
can. But that's not a pass.
that's not a pass. You can take
There you
both.
go.
That's fine. You've earned it at this point. Newcastle or New York?
Newcastle has my heart.
Okay. New York or LA?
New York.
Nice. Sorry, LA.
I like that pivot.
Lounging poolside or scuba diving?
Scuba diving.
Mm-hmm. I think we know the answer to this one.
David,
I can't believe
is
it's
that the question?
No, you'd have to pass on that one.
Liam or Noel?
No, obviously.
We got the answer
Of
earlier. Tube or subway?
Tube.
Okay. Big Ben or Grand Central's clock?
Ooh.
Big Ben.
Okay.
It's actually the Elizabeth Tower. But,
Okay,
sorry.
thank
I'm
you.
be pedantic.
There's the lightning round. It's really
Yeah,
just going.
sorry.
Okay. Football or football?
I'll go with the British version.
Or soccer?
Football.
Okay.
Soccer.
Minutes with Mike or deep dives with Dave?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
Because you said dinner with Dave earlier,
I
so
feel
I
like
can't do that.
dumplings with Dave would be
There,
quite
that's
fun.
well done, sir.
And would be fun and tasty all together.
Touche.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Wonderful. This was a blast.
David
Thank you so much for
Silverglide,
having
Johnny
me.
Grubin, thank you so much. This was wonderful.
That's been
Thank you.
wicked. Thank you guys so much.
Cheers, everybody. Well done, my friend.
That's a wrap.